What if I were to reveal that a mere coin toss forever altered the destiny of rock and roll? Starting with a catastrophic plane crash that took the lives of Buddy Holly, Richie Valance, and J.P. Richardson, and extending to the uncanny premonitions of Ronnie VanZant's demise in a wooded area. The annals of rock are steeped in sorrow and enigma. Here are the top 30 most devastating fatal accidents in rock and roll history. Buddy Holly, Richie Valance, and J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson. On February 3, 1959, emerging rock icons Buddy Holly, Richie Valance, and J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson met their tragic end in a plane crash. They were en route for their winter dance party tour. The circumstances were dire. Their tour bus was malfunctioning repeatedly, leaving everyone freezing and dejected. Opting for a quicker way to reach their next venue and to escape the chilling bus rides, Buddy Holly chartered a small aircraft. Initially, the flight was meant to include Buddy, his bandmate Waylon Jennings, and another band member. However, plans shifted when J.P. Richardson, suffering from the flu, persuaded Jennings to relinquish his seat, and Richie Valance, merely 17, secured his spot through a coin toss. Their aircraft, a Beechcraft Bonanza, departed from Mason City, Iowa, but crashed into a snowy field minutes later due to a combination of bad weather and pilot error, killing all on board instantly. Eddie Cochran. In 1960, Eddie Cochran was captivating UK audiences with his defiant rock and roll flair, leading to a 10-week extension of his tour due to high ticket demand. Back in America, polished pop icons like Frankie Avalon were the rage, but Eddie's raw magnetism resonated with British fans, including future legends like the Beatles. Paul McCartney notably won John Lennon's admiration by performing Eddie's hit 20 Flight Rock during their initial meeting. Tragically, on April 17, 1960, while en route to a London airport following a Bristol performance, Eddie was involved in a fatal accident. Traveling in a taxi with tourmate Gene Vincent, his fiancée Sharon Sheely, and their tour manager, the driver lost control on a dark, winding road in Chippenham, crashing into a lamppost. Eddie was ejected from the vehicle and suffered severe head injuries. He was rushed to the hospital but succumbed to his injuries in the early morning hours. Gene Vincent survived with a broken collarbone, but the crash profoundly impacted all involved. Otis Redding. Otis Redding's voice possessed a soul-stirring power, but tragically, his life ended prematurely in a plane crash on December 10, 1967, when he was just 26 years old. At that peak moment in his career, Otis was renowned for blending soul, rock, and blues, producing timeless classics such as Try a Little Tenderness and Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. Remarkably, he had re-recorded Dock of the Bay just 3 days before his fatal accident. This song later became his most famous work and the first posthumous #1 single in U.S. chart history. Otis and his band, the Bar-Kays, were en route to a performance in Madison, Wisconsin, near the University of Wisconsin, when they decided to brave the terrible weather conditions, heavy rain and fog, in Otis's private Beechcraft H-18 plane. Tragically, just 4 miles from their destination, the plane plummeted into Lake Monona. The crash claimed the lives of Otis and 6 others, including 4 band members. The sole survivor, Ben Cauley, a band member, miraculously stayed afloat using a seat cushion in the icy waters. Brian Jones. Brian Jones, a founding member of the Rolling Stones, was an immensely talented musician with a tumultuous personal life. His demise under enigmatic circumstances occurred when he was discovered at the bottom of his swimming pool at Cotford Farm on July 2, 1969, at the age of 27. Brian had been battling substance abuse issues, which severely impacted his health, damaging his heart and liver, as noted in the coroner's report. Officially, his death was ruled as death by misadventure. Nevertheless, conjecture persists among some fans regarding the true nature of his demise. His girlfriend, Anna Wollman, claimed he was still alive when extracted from the pool, but it was too late by the time medical help arrived. Brian's passing left a deep void in the music world. He was a pivotal force in shaping the early sound of the Rolling Stones, mastering various instruments. His death prompted tributes from many, including Pete Townshend of The Who wrote a poem, Jimi Hendrix, who dedicated a song, and Jim Morrison of The Doors, who wrote an ode in his memory. Intriguingly, Morrison and Hendrix also died within 2 years of Brian's death, both at age 27, contributing to the lore of the infamous 27 Club. Mark Bolan, the charismatic frontman of T-Rex and a glam rock icon, tragically perished in a car crash on September 16, 1977, at the age of 29. Ironically, Bolan harbored a deep-seated fear of dying young and had never learned to drive, convinced he would meet his end in a car accident. On that fateful night, Bolan was a passenger in a Mini Cooper driven by his girlfriend, Gloria Jones, as they were returning from a London club. Both had been drinking. The car veered off the road in Barnes, southwest London, struck a fence post, and collided with a tree. The impact killed Bolan instantly, while Gloria survived but sustained severe injuries. Bolan's sudden death left his fans and the music industry in shock. He was a pivotal figure in the glam rock scene, celebrated for hits like Get It On and Children of the Revolution, and his flamboyant style influenced numerous artists, including David Bowie. Mark's funeral, held at Golders Green Crematorium on September 20, 1977, drew rock royalty such as Bowie, Rod Stewart, and Tony Visconti. His ashes were interred beneath a rosebush, marking a poetic end to his vibrant journey. Terry Kath, a founding member of the band Chicago, was celebrated for his soulful guitar play and powerful vocals. Tragically, he died on January 23, 1978, at the age of 31, in a freak firearm accident. Terry's fascination with guns was well known, a fact that often made his bandmates uneasy. On the evening of his death, Terry was at a party in Los Angeles, showing a 9mm semi-automatic pistol to his friend, Don Johnson. After demonstrating the safety of another gun by spinning its chamber earlier in the night, Terry believed this pistol to be unloaded as well. To demonstrate, he ejected the magazine, unaware that a round remained in the chamber. Tragically, when he pulled the trigger, the gun discharged, killing him instantly. His untimely death was a severe blow to his bandmates and fans, as Chicago was at the height of their popularity. Terry's wife, Camelia, and their young daughter, Michelle, were left to navigate this profound loss. Despite considering disbandment, Chicago decided to continue, eventually filling Terry's role with a new member, Donnie Dacus. Johnny Burnnett, a rockabilly pioneer, met a tragic end in a boating accident on August 14, 1964, at the age of 30. His music was instrumental in shaping early rock and roll, and his abrupt departure created a significant void in the music scene. That night, Johnny was fishing on Clear Lake in California in an unlit boat when a cabin cruiser collided with his vessel, throwing him into the water where he drowned before help could arrive. The loss was particularly devastating for his brother, Dorsey Burnnett, who, along with their mutual friend Paul Burleson, mourned deeply and attended Johnny's funeral. He was laid to rest in Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, where fans continue to honor his legacy. His energetic style and distinctive voice, evident in hits like You're 16 and Dreamin', continue to influence many artists. Duane Allman, the legendary guitarist and co-founder of the Allman Brothers Band, died tragically in a motorcycle accident on October 29, 1971, at the young age of 24. Renowned for his exceptional slide guitar technique and soulful performances, Duane's death was a profound loss to the music world. The accident occurred in Macon, Georgia, during a break from touring. Duane was riding his Harley-Davidson at high speed when he swerved to avoid a flat truck that had stopped abruptly in front of him. He crashed into the truck or its crane, was thrown from his motorcycle, and was pinned underneath it as it skidded along the road. Despite immediate medical attention, Duane succumbed to massive internal injuries hours later. Barry Oakley, the bassist for the Allman Brothers Band, met a tragic fate in a motorcycle accident that was strikingly similar to Duane Allman's, occurring just 1 year later and only 3 blocks from where Duane's accident took place. On November 11, 1972, while riding his motorcycle in Macon, Georgia, Barry collided with a city bus during a sharp turn. Despite the collision, which visibly affected him and involved a head injury, Berry initially refused medical treatment at the scene and went home. However, hours later, he became delirious and was urgently taken to the hospital. Sadly, it was too late. Doctors found he had sustained a fractured skull and cerebral swelling. Like Dwayne, he was only 24 years old at the time of his death. Berry was an essential member of the Allman Brothers Band, known for his deep, melodic bass lines that defined the band's sound. His contributions to tracks like In Memory of Elizabeth Reed and Whipping Post highlighted his immense talent and synergy with the band. Ronnie VanZant, the charismatic lead singer of Lynyrd Skynyrd, tragically died in a plane crash on October 20, 1977, at the age of 29. The accident also claimed the lives of band members Steve Gaines and Cassie Gaines, among others. The band was en route between shows when their Convair CV-240 aircraft ran out of fuel and crashed into a forest near Gillsburg, Mississippi. Prior to the crash, passengers had been warned about mechanical issues and were bracing for impact. Ronnie suffered fatal head injuries and died on impact. He had often discussed his premonitions of dying young, eerily predicting he would not live past 30. Known for his robust voice and poignant lyrics, Ronnie was instrumental in Lynyrd Skynyrd's success, with enduring hits like Sweet Home Alabama and Freebird, which solidified the band's legacy. Jim Reeves, known affectionately as Gentleman Jim. Jim Reeves was a celebrated country music star who also appealed to pop and rock audiences with his smooth, velvety voice. His life ended tragically in a plane crash on July 31, 1964, while he was piloting a Beechcraft Debonair near Nashville, Tennessee. Jim and his manager, Dean Manuel, were returning from a real estate transaction in Arkansas when they encountered a violent thunderstorm near Nashville. Disoriented by the storm, Jim, an inexperienced pilot in such conditions, tried to follow the road below for navigation, but his airspeed dropped too low, causing the aircraft to stall and crash into a wooded area. The wreckage was not found until 42 hours later, despite a massive search involving friends and country stars like Ernest Tubb and Marty Robbins. Both Jim and Dean were found deceased, and the news of his passing devastated fans globally. Danny Cedrone, a pivotal figure in early rock music, met a tragic end just weeks after a landmark recording session. On June 17, 1954, at the age of 33, Cedrone had just laid down the groundbreaking guitar solo for Rock Around the Clock, a track that would eventually revolutionize the music industry. However, Cedrone did not live to see the song's full impact unfold. Only 10 days following the recording session, he suffered a fatal accident when he fell down a staircase and broke his neck, bringing his life to an untimely end. Although Cedrone was a session musician and not a permanent member of Bill Haley's band, his contributions were profound and enduring. Randy Rhodes, the extraordinarily talented guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne, tragically died in a plane crash on March 19, 1982, at just 25 years old. That morning, the band's tour bus had paused at a small airstrip in Leesburg, Florida, to address a malfunctioning air conditioner. The airstrip featured a private runway and several small planes, catching the interest of their bus driver, Andrew Aycock, who was also a licensed pilot. Without authorization, Aycock decided to take one of the planes for a joyride. On his first flight, he brought a few crew members and buzzed the parked tour bus to wake up drummer Tommy Aldridge, seemingly as a prank. After landing, Aycock embarked on a second, fateful flight with Randy Rhodes and makeup artist Rachel Youngblood on board. Despite Rhodes' reluctance to fly, he joined to capture aerial photographs. This flight ended tragically when Aycock attempted to buzz the tour bus again, but lost control on his third pass, causing the plane's wing to clip the bus. The aircraft spiraled out of control, crashed into a nearby garage, and erupted in flames, killing Aycock, Rhodes, and Youngblood instantly. The victims were so severely burned that Rhodes had to be identified by dental records and his personal jewelry. Marvin Gay. The death of Marvin Gay ranks among the most tragic and shocking events in music history. The soulful voice behind timeless hits like What's Going On and Let's Get It On was silenced forever on April 1, 1984, when Marvin was fatally shot by his own father during a heated domestic dispute. He was just 44 years old, and his death occurred one day before his 45th birthday. The incident unfolded in the Los Angeles family home, where Marvin had been staying with his parents. An argument between his parents escalated that afternoon, and Marvin intervened to calm the situation. Unfortunately, the conflict intensified, becoming physical between Marvin and his father. Marvin Gay Sr. tensions had been simmering for years, with Marvin Sr. being a strict and often abusive figure, leaving Marvin Jr. with deep emotional scars. During the altercation, Marvin Sr. retrieved a gun that Marvin Jr. had once gifted him and shot his son twice, once in the chest and once in the shoulder. Paramedics arrived swiftly, but Marvin was pronounced dead at the hospital at 1:01 p.m. If Marvin Gay's story moved you, the next narrative about a bassist who died in a tragic bus accident will also resonate deeply. Cliff Burton. Cliff Burton, the legendary bassist of Metallica, tragically lost his life in a bus accident on September 27, 1986, while on tour in Sweden. The band was promoting their groundbreaking album Master of Puppets during the Damage Incorporated tour. The night before the tragic accident, Cliff and Kirk Hammett decided to draw cards to determine who would get the preferred bunk on the tour bus. Cliff drew the ace of spades, winning Kirk's bunk, and quipped, "I want your bunk." Kirk, being easygoing, agreed and chose another place to sleep. Early the next morning, around 7:00 a.m., disaster struck. The bus was traveling along the E4 highway in Kronoberg County, Sweden, when it suddenly skidded off the road and flipped onto the grass. Cliff, who was sleeping in the bunk he had won, was thrown through a window and pinned underneath the overturned bus, dying instantly. The bus driver blamed the crash on black ice, but James Hetfield of Metallica was skeptical, finding no ice upon inspecting the road himself. Swedish police later reported the road was dry and suggested the accident might have been caused by the driver dozing off, though no charges were filed, and the driver was never held responsible. Stevie Rayvon. Stevie Rayvon, one of the greatest guitarists of all time, perished in a helicopter crash on August 27, 1990. The tragedy unfolded after an all-star jam session at the Alpine Valley Music Theater in Wisconsin, where Stevie had performed alongside legends such as Eric Clapton. It was a night filled with incredible music, but due to heavy traffic leaving the venue, Stevie and others opted for a quicker departure via helicopter. Stevie boarded a Bell 206B helicopter along with 4 others: the pilot Jeff Brown, Clapton's agent Bobby Brooks, bodyguard Nigel Brown, and tour manager Colin Smythe. Shortly after takeoff, the helicopter crashed into a nearby ski hill under foggy conditions that severely limited visibility. The National Transportation Safety Board later reported that although the pilot was experienced with fixed-wing aircraft, he was not fully qualified to fly a helicopter under such adverse conditions. The crash resulted in the instantaneous deaths of all 5 on board. Bob Burns. Bob Burns, the founding drummer of Lynyrd Skynyrd, died tragically in a car accident on April 3, 2015, in Cartersville, Georgia. He was 64 years old. Bob was instrumental during the band's formative years, helping to craft the southern rock sound that would become their hallmark. On the night of his death, Bob's car veered off the road while navigating a sharp turn and crashed into a tree. Tragically, he was not wearing a seatbelt and died at the scene. His passing was profoundly felt by former bandmates and fans alike, who remembered him as a cornerstone of Lynyrd Skynyrd's early success. Bob had been with the band since 1964, well before they rose to fame. He played on some of their most iconic tracks, including Free Bird and Sweet Home Alabama. His dynamic drumming style infused the band's music with energy and groove, cementing their status as pioneers of Southern rock. He left the band in 1974, but remained a beloved figure in their storied history. Jeff Porcaro. Jeff Porcaro, the legendary drummer and co-founder of the band Toto, tragically passed away on August 5, 1992, at the age of 38. Jeff was at his home in Hidden Hills, California, engaging in gardening and spraying insecticide when he suddenly fell ill. He was urgently taken to Humana Hospital in West Hills. Initially, it was believed that he suffered a fatal heart attack triggered by an allergic reaction to the pesticides. However, the Los Angeles County coroner later clarified that the cause of death was a heart attack brought on by occlusive coronary artery disease, which was aggravated by his history of cocaine use and heavy smoking. His untimely death dealt a significant blow to the music world. Sandy Denny, the ethereal voice behind Fairport Convention, died on April 21, 1978, after suffering a traumatic fall that led to a brain hemorrhage. She was just 31 years old. Sandy's talent was exceptional. She brought a haunting beauty to folk rock with songs like "Who Knows Where the Time Goes." However, her life was increasingly marred by personal struggles, including depression, a failing marriage, and substance abuse. Her erratic behavior had long concerned friends and family, with her frequent falls becoming more alarming over time. In late March 1978, Sandy experienced a severe fall down a staircase while on holiday, striking her head on concrete. Although she initially appeared to recover, she continued to suffer from severe headaches. Days later, another fall at her home resulted in her slipping into a coma. Despite immediate hospitalization, Sandy never regained consciousness and ultimately succumbed to a brain hemorrhage. Tupac Shakur, one of the most influential rappers of all time, was tragically shot in a drive-by shooting on September 7, 1996, in Las Vegas, Nevada. He succumbed to his injuries 6 days later on September 13, at just 25 years old. Earlier that evening, Tupac had attended a Mike Tyson boxing match. After the fight, a confrontation occurred in the MGM Grand Lobby involving Tupac, Suge Knight, and Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, a gang member previously accused of attempting to rob Tupac's entourage. Surveillance footage captured the altercation, which later fueled speculation about the motive behind his murder. Later that night, while Tupac and Suge were driving to a nightclub, a white Cadillac pulled up beside their vehicle at a stoplight. A gunman from the Cadillac opened fire, hitting Tupac 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, and once in the thigh. He was quickly rushed to the hospital, but died from internal bleeding, leaving the music world in mourning. The Notorious Big, also known as Biggie Smalls, was killed in a drive-by shooting on March 9, 1997, at the age of 24. The evening began with Biggie attending an after-party for the Soul Train Awards at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, attended by over 2,000 people, including celebrities like Aliyah and members of the Bloods and Crips gangs. After the fire marshal shut down the overcrowded venue shortly after midnight, Biggie and his entourage left in 2 Chevrolet Suburbans. Biggie was in the front passenger seat of one, accompanied by his associates Damian, D-Rock Butler, Lil Cease, and Driver. Scene Diddy comms followed in a separate vehicle with bodyguards. As their cars paused at a red light, a black Chevrolet Impala pulled up beside Biggie's Suburban. The driver, described as a man in a suit and bow tie, rolled down his window and opened fire. Biggie was struck by 4 bullets, but the last, hitting his hip and traveling through vital organs before lodging in his shoulder, proved fatal. He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead at 1:15 a.m. Jeff Buckley's hauntingly beautiful voice made him one of the most promising talents in music. But his life was tragically cut short when he drowned in the Mississippi River on May 29, 1997, at the age of 30. On that evening, Jeff was in Memphis, preparing to work on his next album. Deciding to take a spontaneous swim in Wolf River Harbor, a calm section of the Mississippi River, he waded into the water fully dressed, reportedly singing Led Zeppelin's Whole Lotta Love. His roadie, Keith Fody, remained on shore. Briefly distracted, Fody turned away to move a radio and guitar from the water's edge as a tugboat passed. When he looked back, Jeff had disappeared. The wake from the tugboat likely swept him underwater, pulling him out of sight. Despite a frantic search that night and the next morning, Jeff was nowhere to be found. His body was discovered 6 days later by a passenger on a riverboat, tangled in branches. An autopsy revealed no drugs or alcohol in his system, and his death was ruled an accidental drowning. Aliyah, known as the Princess of R&B, tragically lost her life in a plane crash in the Bahamas on August 25, 2001, at the age of 22, cutting short a burgeoning career that had already produced iconic hits like Are You That Somebody and Try Again. After wrapping up the music video for Rock the Boat on the Abaco Islands, Aliyah and her team, eager to return home, boarded a smaller Cessna 402 twin-engine plane instead of the larger one they had arrived in. The plane was overloaded with equipment and passengers, exceeding the safe weight limit by 700 pounds. Shortly after takeoff, the plane struggled to gain altitude and crashed just 200 feet from the runway, bursting into flames. Aliyah and all 8 others on board, including the pilot, her hairstylist, makeup artist, and record label staff, were killed instantly. An investigation later revealed that the pilot, Luis Morales Doy, had falsified his qualifications and had traces of cocaine and alcohol in his system, making the crash not only heartbreaking but entirely preventable. Dimebag Darrell, the legendary guitarist for Pantera and Damageplan, was tragically killed on December 8, 2004, during a performance with his band Damageplan at the El Rosa Villa nightclub in Columbus, Ohio. As the band commenced their set, a disturbed fan, Nathan Gale, stormed the stage armed with a 9mm pistol. Without warning, he shot Dimebag multiple times at close range, resulting in his immediate death. In the ensuing chaos, 3 others were also killed. Damageplan's head of security, a fan attempting to intervene, and a venue employee. Gale continued shooting until he was confronted and fatally shot by police officer James Niggemeyer. The incident sent shockwaves through the music community, leading to an outpouring of grief. Thousands attended Dimebag's memorial, including music icons like Eddie Van Halen and Zakk Wylde. Eddie Van Halen, honoring a request from Dimebag, placed his original black and yellow striped guitar in the casket. Dimebag was laid to rest in Arlington, Texas, in a custom Kiss casket donated by Gene Simmons. Lisa Left Eye Lopes, the vibrant and talented member of TLC, tragically died in a car crash on April 25, 2002, in Honduras at the age of 30. At the time, TLC was one of the best-selling girl groups of all time, and Lisa was at the peak of her career. She was in Honduras working on a documentary and seeking personal peace when the accident occurred. While driving a rented SUV with friends and family, she swerved to avoid a truck, overcorrected, and lost control of the vehicle, which rolled several times. Lisa, who was not wearing a seatbelt, was ejected from the vehicle and died instantly from head injuries. She was the sole fatality in the accident. Tragically, the crash was captured on video as part of the documentary she was filming, adding an eerie layer to her untimely death. Lisa's funeral in Georgia was attended by thousands of fans and friends who came to say their final goodbyes. Ricky Nelson, a teen idol turned rockabilly star, tragically died in a plane crash on December 31, 1985, en route to a New Year's Eve concert in Texas. Nelson and his band were flying in a Douglas DC-3 aircraft from Guntersville, Alabama, to Dallas, Texas, when the plane encountered severe mechanical issues. A malfunctioning heater in the tail of the plane caused a fire, filling the cabin with toxic smoke. The pilots attempted an emergency landing, but the plane crashed into trees and electrical wires. Although the 2 pilots survived, all 7 passengers, including Nelson, perished. Investigators later determined that the fire caused by the faulty heater was responsible for the crash. Amy Winehouse, known for her soulful and expressive voice with hits like Rehab and Back to Black, tragically died on July 23, 2011, at just 27 years old. In the days leading up to her death, Amy was seen drinking but appeared to be behaving normally, laughing and watching TV late into the night. However, her long struggle with addiction and emotional turmoil had taken a toll. On the morning of her death, her bodyguard found her unresponsive in her home in Camden. Paramedics pronounced her dead at the scene. The coroner's report later revealed that Amy died from alcohol poisoning, with a blood alcohol level over 5 times the legal driving limit. a concentration high enough to cause her to lose consciousness and stop breathing. Despite speculation about drug use, toxicology results showed no illegal substances in her system at the time of her death. Dennis Wilson, the charismatic drummer of the Beach Boys, tragically drowned on December 28, 1983, at Marina del Rey, California. By the early 1980s, Dennis was struggling with severe substance abuse issues and had been leading a tumultuous life. On the day of his death, he had been drinking heavily and made the decision to dive into the marina to retrieve items he had thrown overboard years earlier during a confrontation with his ex-wife. Tragically, while diving, Dennis drowned, likely due to a shallow water blackout, a condition where a swimmer loses consciousness underwater due to a lack of oxygen. Dolores OBrien, the iconic lead singer of the Cranberries, passed away tragically on January 15, 2018. At the time, Dolores had been staying in a London hotel while working on new music. That morning, she was found unresponsive in her hotel bathtub. The coroner's report later revealed that she drowned due to alcohol intoxication. Toxicology tests indicated that her blood alcohol level was 0.33%, significantly above the legal driving limit. Empty bottles of alcohol were also found in her room, underscoring the severe impact of her intoxication at the time of the accident. Taylor Hawkins, the beloved drummer for the Foo Fighters, passed away unexpectedly on March 25, 2022, while on tour in Bogotá, Colombia. That evening, Taylor complained of chest pains at his hotel. Emergency services were called, but despite efforts to revive him, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Preliminary toxicology reports indicated the presence of multiple substances, including opioids and benzodiazepines, in his system. His death also raised concerns about his cardiovascular health, as reports suggested his heart was twice the normal size, pointing to potential underlying health issues.